Hello, world. It's me, Dennis. Welcome to Tardan Today. I'm here with Chip Webster. Hello, Chip.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Noemi Barris connected us and showed me that you have a book that you have written that I think that is so on point to where we are today because this book, Unity in Service, it feels like that our country, the United States, in October of 2025 is shattered. It is in so many factions in so many places, and we need, which is the subtitle to your book, a pathway to responsible citizenship. Let's talk about that.
My favorite subject.
What shall we do? Where are the places? You and I grew up. You're just a year or two older than I am, and we grew up in the 60s. During the time when there was a great separation, you right before the Vietnam conflict and me in the middle of it, but didn't participate. I was in the Army during that time. But now it seems like that we're in a place where we have truly separated ourselves. So talk a little bit about what your thoughts are about this.
Well, it's a very complex subject, but let me start with trust. Back in the 50s, Pew did a study of, do you think the government's going in the right direction? And I may be off a percentage point one way or the other, but it's about 73, 74% of the people interviewed said, yeah, that country's doing the right direction. Now it's 22%. In the 70s, they started asking questions, do you trust these kinds of institutions? And the two that stick out to me, one is hospitals. The whole medical system that 80% trusted in the 70s, and now it's 37%. And banks, people, bankers, they have bad things about it. Commerce doesn't happen without banks. So we need banks and we need to trust them. And it was 60% trusted the banks, and now it's 28. And I could go on and on and on about
right. But you can see the trend line of trust has deeply descended.
And in my opinion, it's because of, I think, three factors. One is the politicians have decided to rally their base on the extremes. And then the press, if you want to sit down and have a good time, just go between CNBC, SNBC, Fox.
Sure.
Pick your networks, but you have to go to at least 3 or 4, public radio, NPR, and you think they're talking about a different world. So if you stay in your silo and only listen to one news source, there's no critical thinking. You're just being spoon-fed, in my opinion, junk from all three of them. So now you don't trust people who think the way you do. We know that families, good friends, friendships have been broken because of this. Mistrust has become anger.
Sure.
And one of the opening things I say in my book is that we've gone from being the United States of America to the un-United States of America.
Right.
And the third element is the web, Facebook, all the media outlets that are not what we grew up with. I was at I went through Leadership Florida several years ago, and I was at the Poynter Institute, which is a media studies institute. And we had high school kids in, and they were part of a panel, and someone asked the question, well, where do you get your news from? Well, I get it from, online from my friends. And how do you know whether it's true or not? Well, if I like them, it's true. If I don't like them, it's not true. That's very scary to me.
Yeah, it's quite, and in the media business, the value is eyeballs. So
right.
However I'm going to, when I was growing up, I was in the news business. I was a reporter. I've done work. I was even a television reporter. And of course, back in the 80s when I was with the stations, it was, if it bleeds, it leads. So we need to get your attention, some way to be able, now we have taken that on steroids, or perhaps exponentially so,
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
my only job is to get you to stay with me, however salaciously I need to be, for another few seconds in order for me to be able to have the algorithm to then pull back to you more of what you just saw.
You're spot on.
It's faster than anything that we've ever done. Have you had the experience where you're just thinking of something and then it will pop up on your computer or it'll pop up on your phone, and the kinds of algorithms that we have?
I have been walking through Costco with my wife, who's a doctor, and asked her about a specific product. And within seconds, an ad was on my phone.
Exactly.
I hate it.
Exactly. But we hate it, but this is the ecosystem we are in. We're not, I don't know. And so one of the things that I love about, and I love about your book and the messages you're doing, is that we're going to have to do this person to person. We're
Yes.
going to have to that's the only way out of this. It's never going to come from top down.
The only, I used to coach CEOs and had one of my nonprofit, really good friend, and excuse me for what I'm going to say, but he said, nobody's going to save your ass but your ass. When you're in deep poop, it's up to us, and nobody's going to say, there's no guy on a white horse or gal on a white horse. Joan of
No.
Arc's not going to be riding in here anytime soon. So yes, only a group of responsible citizens who put country ahead of party can save the downward spiral that we're in.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So how are we doing it local to global? I'm in Central Texas in a small city that sits right on top of Austin. And so I'm doing this locally here. How are you doing it? And where are we doing local to global here? Because that's, to me, just like you said, I don't think there's any other way we can do it but that way.
Well, this morning I went out and shoveled oyster shells into bags that we put along the shoreline to protect Tampa Bay's estuary. I volunteer for an organization called Tampa Bay Watch, which is a phenomenal organization. My book, I've started a nonprofit, Unity and Service. We're trying to figure out how to communicate to the broader base. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of an organization called Vistage. It's an international organization of CEOs. And these are the coaches or the facilitators of these peer groups. And I started a thing called Keepers of the Flame and you've been around leaders and you've led things. When you're the leader, it's lonely at the top. Well, when you're sitting at a table with 15 CEOs and you're trying to be the lion tamer or facilitate it, it's lonely at the end of the table. So I started this in 2005 in Boulder, and we had 13 people there. And this last year we had 85 people. We've had people from all around the world. And that's a small niche, but I'm giving back and hopefully energizing these individuals so that they're more effective and helpful.
Are you seeing a difference in their conversation from when they were at 5, to where you're getting to 85? Is there a difference in their conversation? Are we seeing leadership evolve into what it can be?
I think the answer is yes. I was listening to NPR yesterday, and I wish I could think of the name of the lady who has written a book about humans and how we're all so unique. And we walk into a room and we see people, what they're dressed like, what the color of their skin, what kind of car they drove into, and we make these assumptions about them. They're so narrow and so inaccurate. I mean, if you and I are talking and you said you voted for Trump, I have this whole set of things. If you said you voted for Harris, I have these whole set of things, none of which are true. It's called stacking. And it's lazy, but to see your humanness. one of the thing that's so great about Keepers of the Flame is that the conversations are so rich, and we do small group work. So it's, 3 or 4 people who have been doing this kind of work for 20, 30, 40 years, talking together about what they're wrestling with or what they want to accomplish. And the conversations just go deep, quick. I think people are starving for that.
Yes.
I can't remember who said it. So somebody once said that being listened to is so much like being loved. It's hard to tell the difference. If you sit down and genuinely listen to somebody, you're validating them. And when you validate them, they're going to open up.
Yes.
I
I
don't
can
know.
hear
I
that in
don't think
you.
I answered your question.
Well, that's what I love about this, about having a conversation rather than an interview, because
Right.
we can go deep into this, because I love our opportunity as 2 old white men. We get an opportunity to be able to see. One of the things that I would like to have people who are not my skin color, not my gender, not my particular proclivity, to be able to have the same opportunities. I think of it as the benefit of the doubt. When I was a man going into a store, or going into a job interview, or going into an audition, I've always felt the benefit of the doubt. It's that tiny, tiny bit of that I belong. And I would love for that to be something that other people could experience at the same level that I did. That to me would be and move toward a more equitable society.
I agree with that, but being around for so many years, we have made a lot of progress. I'm not saying we're there yet. We'll never be there.
No.
But I served on the board of the Urban League for Central Florida for, I guess it was 7 years. CEO is a great friend of mine. In fact, I did a book launch on Saturday, and he came over from Orlando with his wife, and then took off the next morning for Taiwan. So he's just he's one of my best friends. And his whole thing was education,
Yes.
employment, and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And I have a good friend whose son married an African woman. They met in Africa. She grew up in Africa. And when she came to the United States, she was kind of interested that, a lot of the people of color spend more time focused on their victimhood rather than what do I do to get out of this. So it's a hand up. It's an opening up with the opportunity.
Well, I have seen, because I spend a lot of time around people of color, and because that's one of my passions. I'm not finding that same thing that she found. I find a great thirst for upward movement, a great thirst for claiming that we are here, and we are here, and the playing field is equal. I mean, I think of like the 1948 Detroit Pistons. That was a white team.
Right.
I was wondering, how would they compete at the same time with the Oklahoma Thunder of 2025? And it's just a competition thing. And I believe that as we train us all up, as education is equal, as we get an opportunity to do it, we're going to see a much greater participation, and we're going to see a much greater movement within the entire society.
Well, by the way, I grew up in Southern California, and in Palm Springs, there was one high school, and there was everything from Red Skelton's daughter and Dinah Shore's daughter to the people who serve them, of color.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some separation, but not much. And I played football, and it was all in the locker room, and we were all there together, and we were all trying to win.
Wonderful.
Then my first trip to the South was probably 1970. Fast forward, my dad was president or chair of the USC Alumni Association for the Midwest. And if you go back, there's a 30 for 30 um, in ESPN on
Yeah.
the SC Alabama game
Yeah.
that I was there. And Bear Bryant and John McKay, actually, Bear asked John, would you please bring your team to Birmingham, Legion Field, and show people that black kids can play football? And we had a black quarterback. We had Sam Bam Cunningham. We went in there and we beat Alabama. And after the game, he brought Cunningham into the Alabama locker room and said, gentlemen, this is a football player. What you're talking about is ladies and gentlemen, we're all human.
Yes.
We all need an equal opportunity. But one of the biggest mistakes we can make is lowering the bar so everybody gets, it's like the school districts are getting rid of advanced math, advanced history. That isn't doing anything but lowering the whole standard.
No.
The idea is to help people, give them a hand up, find out what their talents are, and help them.
Exactly. And we can do that through investment in education, correct?
Yes, but I think it's, we think, just so you know, when I graduated from Lake Forest High School, the counselor said, because I was terrible at testing, you really don't need.
And you were dyslexic, so you had a learning disability,
right,
that you had to fight through in order to be able to read your basic sentences.
Right. So she said, you probably don't need to go to college, which I graduated from, but I barely, because I was more interested in work. I worked for Sears through college. I had been hired to be a trainee before I went back for my senior year. That's where I excelled. It was, some people excel in the athletic field. I excelled in retail at that time.
Yes, but still, it's the same thing. It's a team. You have to build a team and grow a team. It's the same concept. You're just doing it in a retail setting as opposed to an athletic field.
Well said. You're right on. It's funny. I listened to some of your interviews earlier of the people in the film industry, which, being from California and having a little observation about that, you talk about a team and orchestrating and putting many moving parts together. And I don't care what your color is. I don't care when you went to school. Can you make this enterprise, this program we're working on, better?
Yes.
And are you committed to it? And will you show up early and stay late and do whatever it takes to get the job done? That's how things get moved. And if you think about going back to the pathway to responsible citizenship, I'm trying to get a movement of people who say, we've got to make this better by listening. We've got to make this by breaking down the barriers, by working together. When I was out there shoveling shells today, and I happened to be on the board, so I know a lot of these people, they all voted differently than I did. Yep. Some did, some didn't. But it's not what it's about. We're about something bigger, which is the shorelines and making Tampa Bay healthier. That's bigger than me.
Yeah.
And we're working together towards a common goal. What we don't have as leaders, I don't care what party you pick, who are focused on the bigger picture, making America healthy, making America healthy from a standpoint of a healthy culture.
Yes.
I mean, what we've been talking about is culture. Every organization has one, whether they know it or not. When I used to interview CEOs and culture was a big buzzword, I'd say, tell me about your culture. And I actually had a guy say, I've always wanted one of those. You have one. It's dysfunctional, I'll bet.
Exactly. And how do we go from, and I love that, because this is our opportunity to go from disparate opinions and different ideas, and to say, okay, what is our principle? I think of it like principles, not personalities. What is the principle that we're going toward? What is our opportunity to be able to say, what are the things that we can both say that we want, and let's work toward that?
Right. George Washington, in his farewell address, and I can't quote it exactly, it basically said, political parties will destroy this country. And I've observed political parties, people we're going through it right now. They're not putting the country first, they're putting their party first.
Right.
And if you, in my book, two congressmen, a former Congress one a Democrat, one a Republican,
Mm-hmm.
endorsed my book. And, getting to know them, they'd say they go to Washington and they were told as freshmen, Congress people, you do it our way. You do what the party tells you to do, or you're going to have nothing. You
Right.
get no power.
And you're going to spend 60% of your time on the phone fundraising for your next campaign.
Yes. Yes. And that's one of the things that I know several former politicians, they just said, I can't do that anymore. We have made running for office and giving back at a national level and somewhat at a local level almost impossible because of what people are willing to say, true or not, about the other person.
Right.
And, I say, America is having the quality. I don't know if you've ever heard of David White. He's a great poet.
No, I haven't.
Followed. He's a really good guy. I've happened to hike in Italy with him and in Ireland. And he said, the quality of the relationship is driven by the quality of the conversation. Well, we're not having a conversation. We're having a food fight. And until somebody just blows a whistle and says, time out, we're killing ourselves.
Well, what is it that you and I have not talked about in this conversation, this conversation that we're having? What should we be talking about?
What should this conversation be about, or what should the country be talking about?
Between you and me, two old men who are sitting there going, we love our country and we want to see this do better. What should we talk about today, you and me?
What have you done recently, and what are you going to do this afternoon, and what are you going to do tomorrow about breaking down the barriers your way? It's one-on-one.
Yes. And that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And doing this with you and being able to say exactly what is it that we can do? Where is this opportunity for unity? And I can learn more. I can learn more about you and learn more about what your perspectives are. And that's what I need to do.
Listen without judgment. And it's hard. This is easy to say.
Very hard. That is one of my big challenges is that I will leap to judgment before I even know that I'm there.
Yeah. And part of it's the way we were wired to survive in the jungle. Because if we saw a lion, we knew to get up in the tree or whatever. Yeah, right. There's actually my book is a series of essays, and one of the essays is about listening. And with somebody, I have several friends who philosophically are different. I mean, we're great friends, but philosophically, politically, we're in different camps. And I first of all, I said, our friendship one-on-one is more important than politics. Yeah, politics is important as a citizen to participate in, but my being right and you being wrong, or vice versa, which is what.
Well, how do you do? Let me ask a question about that. Sure. So, as the practical way, all right, you have a friend who is of a different political persuasion, and they are going on in a way that is diametrically opposed to how you both believe in it. How do you steer the conversation back to prison? What do you practically do, Chip?
I ask questions, and when they start off on something, well, tell me more about that. And then when they answer, tell me more, or why do how never challenge, how could you think that? Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Why is it a horrible word? But just tell me more, expand on that. Help me understand. You'll find that the energy, the negative energy, begins to dissolve. Voices maybe lower a little bit, and you're just listening, and they're feeling that you're listening without judgment. I mean, in the back of my head, I'm going, well, I don't know that I agree with that, but I need to know more. Help me know more. And curiosity. And at the end, when they're done, then you say, now here's what I heard you say. Because until they know that you've heard them, you really haven't. So if it's, here's the reason I voted for Harris, and all the lists, and I said, well, let me just make sure I understand, this, and this, or why did you vote for Trump? Well, this, and this. Okay, thank you. And unless only then give your point of view if they ask for it. And they won't ask for it necessarily that day, or maybe by then you've had 3 glasses of wine. But then when they ask you, or you're talking about something, trying to make a point, then they can ask you. But don't insist on being heard. Insist to yourself to be listening and learning. And when I wrote my book, I don't know if you look in the back, there's a lot of people that help me. And I have some really good friends from high school that still we get together, and they typically vote differently than I do. And I sent them the transcript, and they read it, and they said, you really need to consider this. I thought, wow, you're right. I'm going to change the order of this. I don't. Well, I'm rambling on, but
Actually, you're not. You're rambling to me, and you're saying exactly what I need to hear, because I love the principle that you talked about, is that people need to feel that they are heard. And in order to do that, we have to practice active listening and recapitulating back to people what it is I heard you say. And that is just wonderful. Oh, before we go, you have a poem for us. Would you please?
It's called Microvalidations. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. English proverb. Microclimates, microbiomes, microaggressions. We live in a microclimate. Microbiomes live in us. Microaggressions are part of life. What we need more of are microvalidations, more affirmations. We've become trapped in our silos. We've become contemptuous of those who don't agree with us. They must not be human. Our country, our cities, our friends have become divided. We can't keep distancing ourselves from each other. We must all hang together, or most assuredly we'll hang separately. Benjamin Franklin. Our children, our grandchildren need us to hang together for their future. A healthy democracy requires its citizens to work together to remain free. We need to see our interdependence and break down the barriers that divide us. We need each other. Start with microvalidations. Open the door for someone and say hello. Talk to your neighbors. Look people in the eye and acknowledge their humanness. Reconnect with each other. Affirm the humanness in everyone.
Chip, thank you for coming on to Tardan Today. Your book is Unity in Service. And this is what, and this book is going to be able to be something that is important to us, and it's important. I want to thank you for coming on to our show. This is the book. You can get it on Amazon, and I want to give you. I'm so glad that Noemi got us together, and that we're having an opportunity to meet you today.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for visiting us on Tardan Today, and thank you to Chip Webster. Thank you for coming and joining us, and we'll see everybody next time.